Ancient monuments across the globe whisper a secret in stone. From the pyramids of Giza to the temples of Angkor Wat, these structures appear isolated, yet a hidden geometric code connects them all. By the end of this journey, you will see a startling new map of human history emerge. We will uncover how builders separated by oceans and millennia used the same precise mathematical laws, raising the possibility of a lost global civilization. How could a temple in Mexico and a pyramid in Egypt be designed with the same sacred ratios? The evidence challenges everything we thought we knew about our past. What does it say about us if our ancestors were part of a single, interconnected world? These patterns are not random artistic choices. They are echoes of a universal language written into the fabric of reality itself. This language is sacred geometry, an ancient system of belief that specific shapes, ratios, and proportions hold profound spiritual power. For cultures separated by vast oceans and thousands of years, from the Egyptians to the Maya, these geometric forms were seen as the very blueprints of creation. The Greek philosopher Plato called them the eternal forms, the perfect templates behind our imperfect world. This is not just abstract philosophy. It is a practical code used by master builders to construct temples and monuments that hum with a sense of cosmic harmony. The principles are precise and repeatable. The golden ratio, often represented by the Greek letter phi, is a special number, approximately 1.618, that appears when a line is divided so the whole length compared to the longer part is the same as the longer part compared to the shorter part. This creates a proportion that the human eye finds inherently beautiful and balanced. We see it in the spiral of a sunflower's seeds, the curve of a nautilus shell, and remarkably, in the precise dimensions of the Parthenon in Greece. Its facade is famously arranged according to this divine proportion, creating a structure that feels both majestic and perfectly at peace. Then there is the Fibonacci sequence, a series of numbers where each is the sum of the two before it, starting with 0 and 1. This sequence generates a spiral that mirrors the golden ratio spiral, a pattern of growth found throughout the natural world. Why would a temple in Greece, a pyramid in Egypt, and a sun temple in Peru all be designed using these same mathematical rules if they were not communicating in a shared symbolic language? The independence of their discoveries points to a startling truth. They were not copying each other. They were all reading from the same cosmic source code, a universal set of instructions for creating structures that resonate with the fundamental order of the universe. This ratio is not confined to a single continent or culture. It is etched into the Great Pyramid of Giza, where the relationship between its base and its height whispers the number 1.618. Travel to the plains of England, and you will find the great sarsen stones of Stonehenge arranged in a rectangle that conforms to this same sacred proportion. Across the ocean, the towering Temple of the Sun at Teotihuacan in Mexico was built with a base that, when divided, reveals the golden ratio. Even the vast geoglyphs of the Nazca lines in Peru incorporate shapes and alignments that correspond to this divine number. How could builders separated by thousands of miles and years arrive at the same precise mathematical constant? Scholars who study ancient measurement systems, like Livio Catulo Stecchini, have long argued that a shared metrology, a common system of measurement based on the proportions of the Earth itself, was used across the ancient world. This is not a case of simple coincidence. The consistent appearance of the golden ratio suggests a common source of knowledge, a foundational blueprint that different cultures accessed independently. It points to a universal human intuition for harmonic design, a deep-seated understanding that certain shapes and ratios create a resonance, a feeling of rightness and balance that transcends language and time. The stones themselves are telling us they were part of a grander, interconnected architectural plan. But these geometric principles extend far beyond the ground, reaching up into the heavens. Ancient architects were not just building with the earth in mind, they were mirroring the cosmos above. This required generations of patient observation, with priests and astronomers meticulously tracking the sun's journey, the moon's phases, and the steady march of constellations. Their monuments became massive stone calendars and observatories, permanently fixed to the rhythms of the sky. The Great Circle of Stonehenge is a perfect example, its central axis aligned so that on the summer solstice, the rising sun directly pierces the heart of the monument, flooding the inner circle with light. This was no accident. It was a deliberate, profound connection between the human world and the celestial one. This same precision is found in the Great Pyramid of Giza, whose 4 sides are aligned to the 4 cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, with an accuracy of less than 1/15 of a single degree. Such perfection in orientation would be a staggering achievement even with modern technology, yet it was accomplished with stone tools and celestial knowledge. Some researchers suggest its air shafts were even pointed directly towards specific stars, like those in Orion's belt, potentially mapping the pharaoh's journey to the afterlife in the stars. Far across the world, the Maya achieved a similar feat at Chichen Itza. During the spring and autumn equinoxes, the setting sun casts a series of triangular shadows down the steps of the Grand Pyramid, El Castillo. These shadows merge with stone serpent heads at the base, creating the undulating body of a massive snake slithering down to the earth. This phenomenon, known as the descent of Kukulkan, the feathered serpent god, demonstrates an incredible fusion of astronomy, geometry, and mythology. How could cultures separated by continents and millennia develop such similar, sophisticated celestial knowledge? Did they each labor for centuries to independently unlock the secrets of the stars, or were they all drawing from a deeper, perhaps even lost, well of cosmic understanding? This shared focus on the heavens forms a powerful second thread in the geometric web connecting these ancient worlds. This geometric web does not only connect local sites. It stretches across the entire planet. Draw a straight line on a globe from the Great Pyramid of Giza and follow it across the world. You will find it intersecting with the ancient mountaintop city of Machu Picchu, and then continuing across the vast Pacific to the mysterious stone heads of Easter Island. This is not a random path. It is a great circle route, the shortest possible distance between these points on the surface of a sphere. The concept of ley lines, first proposed by Alfred Watkins, suggests that ancient sacred sites are not randomly scattered, but are deliberately positioned along these straight alignments. These pathways may follow the Earth's own energy grids or geodetic pathways, the planet's subtle but powerful natural lines of force. The Great Pyramid itself sits on one of the longest possible land meridians on Earth, a north-south line that connects an astonishing number of other significant ancient centers. How could cultures with no known communication place their most important monuments with such global precision? Researchers like John Michell have argued that this points to a lost science, an advanced understanding of the Earth's true shape and size possessed by our ancestors. They may have seen the planet not as a flat land, but as a single, living entity, and they built their sacred sites like acupuncture points upon its body, intended to harness terrestrial energies or to stabilize the land itself. This transforms the collection of ancient wonders from isolated masterpieces into something far grander, a coordinated global network. The implication is staggering. It suggests a master plan that transcends any single kingdom or culture, a shared blueprint for a world woven together by stone and spirit. Were these builders part of a forgotten civilization with a global reach, or did they all independently tap into the same deep, intuitive knowledge of the Earth's hidden geometry? The stones are aligned, and they are asking us to see the pattern. The sheer scale of these stones mocks our modern assumptions. Consider the task of a Neolithic engineer. Your tools are stone, wood, and rope. Your challenge is to move a block of granite weighing 50 tons, the equivalent of a full-grown humpback whale, across miles of rugged terrain. Your final goal is not just to drop it in a field, but to position it with centimeter-perfect accuracy among other stones, creating a structure that will stand for millennia. This was the reality at sites like Stonehenge, where the great Sarsen stones were shaped and raised with joints more familiar to a master carpenter than a primitive stone worker. The uprights were gently curved on top to hold the lintel stones securely, and the entire circle was subtly tapered to correct for optical illusion, a level of sophistication we would struggle to replicate even today. Far greater stones rest in Lebanon at Baalbek. The foundation of the Roman temple of Jupiter there sits upon 3 colossal blocks known as the Trilithon, each one weighing over 800 tons. How they were quarried, moved over a mile, and hoisted into place remains one of the most profound engineering mysteries in human history. This was not brute force. It was applied mathematics of the highest order. The geometric layouts of these sites reveal a knowledge that seems to leapfrog through time. At Stonehenge, the arrangement of stones incorporates the use of Pythagorean triples, sets of 3 whole numbers that perfectly satisfy the famous theorem for right-angled triangles, a principle not formally documented until centuries after the Greek philosopher Pythagoras. This means the builders were using advanced practical geometry to ensure their astronomical alignments were true. They understood the relationships between shapes and distances with a clarity that we once thought impossible for their era. This precision was not for vanity. It was essential to their purpose. For these ancient cultures, geometry was a sacred language, a direct expression of cosmic order. A perfectly squared stone or a precisely measured circle was not just a building technique, it was an act of spiritual resonance. They believed that by building according to these divine mathematical laws on Earth, they were creating a harmonic link with the heavens, making their temples into portals or amplifiers of celestial power. The staggering accuracy we see in the stones was, for them, the only way to ensure their structures were truly holy. This lost science viewed numbers and shapes as the fundamental building blocks of reality, and by mastering them, these ancient engineers were not just constructing monuments. They were weaving the fabric of the universe itself into stone. Yet another profound geometric shape echoes through these ancient structures, a form so simple yet so powerful it was seen as the womb of creation itself. Picture 2 identical circles, each one passing through the other's center. Where they overlap, they create a distinct almond shape, a figure known as the Vesica Piscis. This was not merely an artistic motif. For cultures around the world, this shape symbolized the moment of creation. The sacred intersection where spirit meets matter and form is born from the formless. It represents the fundamental union of opposites, the coming together of heaven and earth, male and female, to generate all of reality. This single geometric pattern appears with stunning consistency in the world's most sacred spaces. You can walk the floor plans of Europe's great Gothic cathedrals like Chartres and find the Vesica Piscis defining the proportions of the nave and the soaring rose windows. This was a deliberate architectural choice, meant to transform the entire building into a symbolic gateway to the divine. The same sacred blueprint appears in the layout of ancient Greek temples and even in the intricate mandalas of Hindu and Buddhist traditions, where it maps the cosmos and the journey to enlightenment. In ancient Egypt, this concept was deeply embedded in their worldview. The very design of the pyramids and their associated temples is thought to incorporate the Vesica Piscis, framing them as portals or transition points for the pharaoh's soul, a geometric bridge between the world of the living and the realm of the gods. This symbolic language traveled through time. Early Christian artists adopted the exact same shape, using it as a radiant frame or mandorla around figures of Christ and the Virgin Mary in icons and stained glass, explicitly denoting a moment of divine revelation and holy birth. How is it that a temple in India, a cathedral in France, and a pyramid in Egypt all speak this same silent geometric tongue? The Vesica Piscis is more than a shared symbol. It acts as a geometric key, unlocking a deeper layer of connection between monuments we have long considered separate. When we recognize this shape in a floor plan or a facade, we are not just seeing a decorative pattern. We are glimpsing a universal understanding of cosmic genesis, a spiritual geometry that may have guided the very placement of these stones, aligning them not just with the stars, but with the fundamental principles of creation itself. The Giza Plateau stands as the undeniable heart of this global network. Look past the three iconic pyramids and see them as a central command node in a planetary system of sacred geometry. Its location was chosen with a knowledge of the Earth that seems impossible for its time. The Great Pyramid sits at the precise intersection of the longest land meridian, running north to south, and the longest parallel, running east to west, effectively placing it at a geodetic center of the world's landmasses. This is not a random piece of desert. It is a calculated position. The very dimensions of the structure whisper advanced mathematics, with its base perimeter divided by its height yielding a close approximation of 2 times pi, and its proportions consistently reflecting the golden ratio. But the real mystery unfolds when you pull back to a global view. Draw lines from Giza to the mountaintop citadel of Machu Picchu in Peru. The distance forms one side of a great circle. Continue that line to the jungle temples of Angkor Wat in Cambodia, and you complete a geometric circuit of staggering precision. These are not vague connections. When plotted on a globe, the angles and distances between these sites form perfect triangles and circular arcs. How could the builders of these monuments, separated by oceans and millennia, have possibly coordinated such a feat? Researchers like Graham Hancock argue that the precision is simply too great to be the result of chance. They propose a radical idea that a sophisticated mother culture, perhaps pre-dating a great global cataclysm like a flood, possessed this advanced geographical knowledge and seeded it across the world. This theory finds echoes in the stars. The alignment of the 3 Giza pyramids with the 3 stars of Orion's belt is famous. Yet this same celestial map is deeply embedded in the traditions of the Hopi people of the American Southwest, who speak of their ancestors emerging from the earth guided by these very stars. This shared celestial tradition connecting the Nile to the Arizona desert suggests a common source of cosmic wisdom. The Giza Plateau is the key that unlocks the pattern. It is the linchpin that holds this ancient framework together, proving that these monuments were not built in isolation, but were designed as part of a single, interconnected system. From this central hub, the geometric pathways lead outwards, pointing us toward other crucial nodes in this lost global network. The placement of these monuments was guided by more than just stars and mathematics. Ancient builders perceived the Earth itself as a living, breathing entity, and they chose their sacred sites by listening to its subtle pulse. This practice, known as geomancy, was the art of aligning human structures with the natural energies of the landscape. From the precise principles of Chinese Feng Shui to the ancient Indian architectural science of Vastu Shastra, cultures across the globe shared a common belief that certain locations held a unique and powerful charge. They sought out places where underground water streams converged, where the Earth's magnetic field was unusually strong, or where the telluric currents, the planet's own energy flows, intersected. These spots were seen as vortices, natural amplifiers for spiritual and ceremonial power. The great pyramid builders of Egypt did not simply choose a flat area of desert. They selected the Giza Plateau for its remarkably stable bedrock, a foundation of solid limestone that could support unimaginable weight for millennia, but perhaps also for the subtle energies that such a unique geological formation might channel. In England, the enigmatic hill of Glastonbury Tor has long been associated with powerful earth energies, said to spiral around its slopes along ancient pathways known as ley lines. The Tor itself is a natural focal point in the landscape, a place that seems to draw power from the surrounding land. Why would cultures with no contact all develop this same sensitivity to the living earth? Was this knowledge gained through centuries of empirical observation, watching how plants grew, how animals behaved, and how water flowed in certain areas? Or was it a more intuitive, almost psychic ability to feel the vitality of a place, a skill lost to most of us in the modern world? This geomantic wisdom was not separate from the geometric codes. It was the other half of the equation. The sacred geometry provided the cosmic blueprint, the mathematical language of the heavens, while geomancy provided the earthly foundation, the telluric power source. The monument was the interface, the place where the energy from below met the order from above. The builders were not just architects and astronomers. They were spiritual geologists, tapping into the planet's hidden power grid and using their profound understanding of shape and proportion to harness that energy, creating structures that have captivated and mystified us ever since. This fusion of earth and sky, of intuition and mathematics, suggests a lost science far more holistic than our own. These 5 perfect shapes hold the key to a deeper cosmic blueprint. Plato called them the Platonic solids, the only 3-dimensional forms with all their faces, edges, and angles perfectly identical. To the ancient philosopher, these were not mere mathematical curiosities. They were the eternal templates for the very elements of creation. The tetrahedron was fire, sharp and penetrating. The cube represented the stable earth. The octahedron was air, the icosahedron flowing water, and the dodecahedron symbolized the spirit or ether that permeates the cosmos. This was not just Greek philosophy. It appears these same perfect shapes were secretly encoded into the very monuments we have been exploring. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for instance, is not a simple square-based pyramid. Its complex geometry can be interpreted as part of an octahedron, a shape mirrored above and below the ground, connecting the structure to the element of air and the heavens. But the theory becomes truly global when we look at the whole planet. Visionary thinkers like Buckminster Fuller proposed that the Earth itself is structured around an invisible matrix defined by these Platonic solids. Imagine taking a dodecahedron, a 12-sided shape with pentagonal faces, and wrapping it around the globe like a geometric cage. The points where its vertices touch the Earth's surface are theorized to be powerful energetic nodes. Astonishingly, many of the world's most significant ancient sites, from the pyramids to Stonehenge to the temples of Angkor Wat, appear to cluster around these predicted points. This suggests the builders were not just placing monuments randomly. They were using the dodecahedron and the icosahedron as a cosmic map, positioning their sacred architecture at specific points on the planet's energetic body. Why would these specific shapes be so important? Look at the natural world around you. The tetrahedron appears in the structure of certain crystals. The cube forms the basis of a salt crystal. Many viruses have the shape of an icosahedron. Our ancestors seem to understand that these forms are the fundamental building blocks of reality, from the microscopic to the cosmic scale. By building their temples and pyramids according to these universal blueprints, they were not just creating beautiful structures, they were attempting to harmonize their works with the core geometry of existence itself, tapping into a resonance that connects the very small, the human, and the planetary into one coherent whole. The Platonic solids provide the potential mathematical framework for the entire monument network, a silent language of form that whispers of a lost science seeing the earth and the heavens as a single, interconnected geometric creation. A Bronze Age vessel, laden not with treasure but with knowledge, could have bridged the world's greatest oceans. The possibility of transoceanic contact long before the age of Columbus presents a radical solution to our geometric mystery. How else can we explain the uncanny resemblance between the stepped pyramids of the Maya and the ziggurats of Mesopotamia? Why does the sacred serpent, a symbol of wisdom and rebirth, coil around the temples of ancient Mexico and rise from the myths of India? These are not vague similarities. They are specific architectural and symbolic echoes that ripple across continents, suggesting a shared source of inspiration that traveled not through the air but across the sea. Scholars like Thor Heyerdahl refused to believe such journeys were impossible. He and his crew built a simple balsa wood raft, the Kon-Tiki, using only materials and techniques available to ancient peoples, and successfully sailed it from South America to the Polynesian islands. This daring expedition proved that the oceans were not impassable barriers, but potential highways for the exchange of ideas. Perhaps master navigators, the Vikings of their day, carried the sacred principles of geometry from one shore to another, planting the seeds of pyramid building and celestial alignment in distant lands. Yet another possibility is that these ideas spread slowly over thousands of years through land routes and a chain of interconnected cultures. A common ancestral civilization, now lost to the depths of time, could have first developed this sacred science, with its knowledge radiating outward in all directions as its people migrated. The geometric laws we find embedded in monuments from Cambodia to Peru could be the last surviving fragments of this lost global conversation, a conversation preserved not in libraries but in the silent, enduring language of stone. This is not merely an academic debate. It challenges the very foundation of conventional history, which has long taught that ancient civilizations developed in complete isolation. The stones tell a different story, a story of a world far more interconnected than we ever dared to believe. The evidence points to a grand narrative of human migration, cultural exchange, and a shared inheritance of cosmic knowledge. The next time you see a picture of a pyramid anywhere in the world, ask yourself if it is truly an independent invention, or if it is a single chapter in a global epic written by countless hands across the millennia. This same mathematical rhythm pulses through the veins of the natural world. Look at the center of a sunflower, and you will see a breathtaking spiral of seeds curving both clockwise and counterclockwise. Count those spirals and you will almost always find two consecutive numbers from the Fibonacci sequence, like 34 and 55. This is not a charming accident. It is the most efficient way for the plant to pack the maximum number of seeds into a limited space, a perfect blueprint for growth. Ancient architects observed this profound efficiency in nature and sought to replicate it in stone. They understood that a building which followed these organic laws would not feel cold and man-made, but alive and inherently harmonious. The Great Passage Tomb of Newgrange in Ireland, older than both the pyramids and Stonehenge, is a powerful example. Its most sacred inner chamber is not a simple room but a corbelled vault that rises in a precise, soaring spiral, a pattern that echoes the Fibonacci growth found in a seashell. This was a deliberate design choice for a tomb, a place of rebirth, mimicking the generative spiral of life itself. The same principle guided the builders of the Parthenon, where the relationship between the height, width, and individual elements of its majestic facade can be broken down into the Fibonacci progression. Even across the world, the intricate layouts of Hindu temples in India were planned using complex geometric diagrams known as mandalas, which often encode these same numerical relationships, governing the proportions from the grand spire down to the smallest shrine. Why would a tomb in Ireland, a temple in Greece, and a sanctuary in India all whisper the same numerical secret? They were not copying each other's blueprints. They were all reading from the same source text, the open book of nature. By incorporating the Fibonacci sequence, these builders were doing more than just creating beauty. They were aligning their most sacred spaces with the fundamental pattern of creation, believing that a structure which grew according to nature's own mathematics would become a true conductor of cosmic energy. This shared impulse reveals a deep, intuitive truth held by our ancestors, a conviction that the most holy architecture must not stand apart from the world, but must be a seamless and beautiful part of its eternal, spiraling dance. These mathematical constants were not just abstract ideas, they were physically built into the stone. The Great Pyramid of Giza holds one of the most famous examples. If you take its base perimeter and divide it by twice its original height, the result is a number startlingly close to pi, approximately 3.1416. This is not a coincidence. The builders deliberately designed the pyramid so its proportions would mirror the relationship between a circle's circumference and its radius, effectively squaring the circle in monumental form. The same structure also conceals the principles of the Pythagorean theorem. The cross-section of the Great Pyramid forms a perfect two-dimensional triangle whose dimensions, the height and the half-base, create a right-angled triangle with sides in a precise 3:4:5 ratio. This is the simplest and most sacred Pythagorean triple, a cornerstone of geometry that would not be formally named for another 2,000 years. How could such a concept be known to the pyramid's architects? It suggests their knowledge was not merely theoretical but profoundly practical, a working geometry used to ensure celestial alignments and structural integrity on a colossal scale. This encoding of constants extends far beyond Egypt. On the island of Java, the vast Buddhist temple of Borobudur rises as a massive, three-dimensional mandala. Its entire structure is a lesson in sacred mathematics. The temple's multiple terraces and concentric circles are arranged according to precise geometric ratios that symbolize the Buddhist path to enlightenment. The very layout is a cosmic map, with its proportions encoding spiritual concepts of balance, harmony, and the journey from the earthly realm to the realm of perfect consciousness. For these builders, numbers like pi and the golden ratio were not cold calculations. They were divine signatures, the fundamental codes of a perfectly ordered cosmos. To use them in construction was to participate in that divine order, to make a temple or a pyramid a true microcosm of the universe. The staggering precision implies this knowledge was guarded and passed down through initiatory traditions, from master to apprentice over generations. This was not common knowledge, but a sacred science reserved for the most learned priests and architects. How did they compute pi with such accuracy using only simple tools? The answer may lie not in complex technology, but in patient, generations-long observation of the stars and the cycles of nature, allowing them to derive these universal constants from the world around them. This practice of encoding eternal numbers into impermanent stone stands as silent, undeniable proof of a sophisticated global intellect, a legacy of genius written in the very dimensions of our world's greatest monuments. This ancient challenge of uniting a circle and a square is far more than a mathematical puzzle. It is a profound spiritual symbol representing the sacred marriage of heaven and earth. The circle, with no beginning and no end, embodies the infinite, the celestial, and the divine spirit. The square, with its 4 equal sides, represents the solid, stable, and material world. To square the circle is to bring these 2 opposing principles into perfect harmony, to make the spiritual tangible and to elevate the physical to the sacred. This quest was central to the work of alchemists who sought not just to turn lead into gold, but to achieve this very union within the human soul, and it was the ultimate ambition of the ancient architects. The Great Pyramid of Giza is the world's most famous attempt to solve this riddle in stone. Its base is a near-perfect square, yet if you take its height as the radius of an imaginary circle, the circumference of that circle is almost exactly equal to the perimeter of the pyramid's square base. The builders encoded the relationship between a circle and a square into the very fabric of the monument, creating a constant, silent hymn to cosmic unity. This same principle echoes across the world. The Great Sarsen Circle at Stonehenge was once framed by a massive square of stones, now mostly fallen, known as the Station Stones. This layout created a sacred precinct where the circular and the square coexisted, defining a space where the cycles of the heavens met the 4 cardinal directions of the earth. In the quiet meditation halls of Tibetan Buddhism, monks painstakingly create intricate sand mandalas. These are not random designs. They almost always begin with a square palace enclosed within a circle, a precise geometric map of the universe used as a tool for spiritual focus. It represents the journey from the boundless consciousness of the circle into the structured human realm of the square, and then back again. Why would a pyramid in the desert, a stone circle on a plain, and a sand painting in a monastery all strive for the same geometric ideal? They are all microcosms. Each monument was designed as a miniature universe, a perfect model of a harmonious cosmos built here on Earth. By mastering the squaring of the circle, these master builders believed they could create a portal, a place where the divine could descend and humanity could ascend. The stones are not just aligned with the stars, they are a deliberate, geometric prayer for wholeness, a timeless attempt to solve the greatest mystery of all, the reconciliation of spirit and matter. This slow celestial wobble adds a breathtaking new layer to the mystery. Our planet does not spin perfectly upright. It wobbles like a slowing top over a cycle of 26,000 years. This gradual shift, called the precession of the equinoxes, means the starry backdrop against which the sun rises slowly changes over millennia. The truly staggering realization is that our ancestors were not just marking the nightly motion of the stars, they were tracking this imperceptibly slow drift across the ages. They built their monuments to be aligned not only with the sky of their own time, but with the sky of distant epochs, both past and future. The Great Sphinx of Giza, that colossal lion-bodied guardian, presents a compelling clue. Its body faces due east, directly toward the point of the spring equinox sunrise. If we rewind the celestial clock using modern software, we find that around 10,500 years before the Common Era, the constellation of Leo would have been rising directly behind the sun at that precise moment. The Sphinx, a lion, would have been gazing directly at its own celestial counterpart in the dawn sky. This was not a fleeting alignment. It marked the beginning of the age of Leo, a 2,000-year epoch within the great precessional cycle. How could a civilization have known to encode this specific astronomical age into their monument? The implication is that their astronomical records, their understanding of the cosmos, stretched back for thousands of years before the Sphinx was even carved. This knowledge of deep time is echoed on the other side of the world. The Mayan calendar, famous for its supposed prediction of the world's end, is actually a masterpiece of long-term timekeeping. It tracks cycles within cycles, and at its heart is a calculation for the great precessional year itself. Their priests understood that the sun's position at the equinox slowly moves through the 12 constellations of the zodiac, completing one full cycle every 26,000 years. They were not just counting days, they were mapping the vast, rhythmic breathing of the cosmos. This shared awareness of precession transforms the geometric network from a static map into a dynamic clock. The stones are not only aligned in space, they are aligned in time. They were built to serve as permanent markers for eras that would last longer than entire civilizations. Why would they go to such extraordinary lengths? Perhaps these alignments were a warning, a record of past cataclysms that coincide with these grand cycles. Or maybe they were a message of hope, a promise of renewal written in the slow, certain turn of the heavens. This temporal dimension suggests their builders saw themselves as brief custodians in a story much larger than their own, leaving a legacy in stone for future generations, including our own, to finally decipher. A mandala is far more than a beautiful drawing. It is a cosmic engine, a geometric machine for spiritual transformation. In the quiet halls of Tibetan monasteries, monks spend weeks crafting these intricate sand paintings, only to ritually destroy them, teaching the impermanence of all things. Yet the mandala's true power lies in its unchanging structure, a universal template for sacred space that appears in the grandest cities and temples across the world. At its core is a single, potent center representing the axis of the universe. Radiating outward are concentric circles and protective squares, all organized around the four cardinal directions. This design does not merely symbolize the cosmos, it actively creates a microcosm, a small, perfect universe where human life can align with divine order. The sprawling temple complex of Angkor Wat in Cambodia is a mandala made manifest in stone. Its towering central spire represents the mythical Mount Meru, the center of the universe in Hindu and Buddhist cosmology. The surrounding galleries and moats form the concentric rings of continents and oceans described in ancient texts. To walk its causeways is to traverse a cosmic map, moving from the outer world of illusion toward the inner sanctum of enlightenment. This same organizing principle guided the architects of Beijing's Forbidden City. The entire imperial complex is a vast, earthly mandala, with the emperor as the sacred center. The layout is perfectly symmetrical, aligned to the cardinal points, with walls and gates creating layered squares of increasing sanctity, mirroring the celestial order of the heavens to legitimize and stabilize his rule. Even the founding planners of Washington, D.C., employed this ancient template. Pierre L'Enfant's design placed the Capitol building at the center of a radiating web of avenues, creating districts and sightlines that organized the new republic around a symbolic core of power, a secular mandala for a democratic age. Why would cultures separated by faith, ocean, and century all arrive at this same spatial organization? The mandala answers a deep human need to find our place in the cosmos. It is a tool for imposing harmony on the chaos of existence, a geometric prayer that our homes, our temples, and our very societies might reflect the perfect balance of the stars. This is not a case of cultural copying, but of parallel discovery. The mandala emerges again and again because it is a fundamental pattern of centeredness, a spiritual and geometric truth about how to create a space that is truly sacred. It is the quiet, recurring signature in the global network of monuments, proving that from a single, sacred center, an entire universe can be built. A medieval map can shatter our entire understanding of the past. Tucked away in the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul is the Piri Reis map, drawn on gazelle skin in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral. He openly stated that his work was compiled from 20 older source maps, some dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. The most baffling section of this map depicts the coastline of Antarctica, a continent that would not be officially discovered for another 300 years. Even more stunning, it shows the landmass without its thick ice cap, a condition that last existed thousands of years before the map was drawn. How could a 16th century cartographer have known the precise shape of a continent buried under miles of ice? The implication is that he was copying from a far more ancient source, a civilization with the technology and knowledge to conduct a global survey during the last ice age. This is not an isolated case. The Portolan charts of the medieval period, used by European sailors, are another cartographic miracle. These navigational maps, with their web of radiating room lines, depict the coastlines of Europe, Africa, and even parts of the Americas with an accuracy that seems to defy the technology of the era. They appear suddenly fully formed with no primitive predecessors, as if this sophisticated geographic knowledge was rediscovered, not gradually developed. If these maps are indeed copies of a lost master blueprint, it completely rewrites the story of human exploration. It means that someone, long before Columbus, understood the world as a sphere and had charted its lands with precision. This knowledge would have been the essential tool for the grand geometric network. You cannot place a pyramid in Egypt, a temple in Cambodia, and a city in Peru into a perfect global triangle unless you know exactly where those points are located on the curved surface of the planet. The existence of these maps provides the missing link, the practical instrument that could have made the coordinated placement of sacred sites not just possible but systematic. The monuments themselves are the permanent landmarks, and these ancient charts are the faded copies of the original architectural plans for an entire world. The stones did not just speak a visual language, they were meant to sing. Ancient philosophers like Pythagoras did more than develop a theorem. He taught that the cosmos itself was a vast musical instrument. He proposed that the planets, as they moved through the heavens, generated a celestial harmony, a perfect chord too sublime for human ears to perceive. He called this the music of the spheres, and it was not just a poetic idea. It was a scientific and spiritual conviction that the universe is ordered by the same mathematical ratios that create beautiful music. A plucked string that produces a certain note when divided in specific ways creates the perfect intervals of the octave, the fifth, and the fourth. These ratios are not arbitrary, they are the fundamental building blocks of acoustic harmony, and the master builders of the ancient world sought to capture this cosmic symphony in stone. They designed their most sacred structures using these exact same musical proportions, believing that a building based on these ratios would literally resonate with the music of creation itself. Walk into the soaring nave of Chartres Cathedral, and you are standing inside a frozen hymn. The entire structure, from the width of its bays to the height of its vaulted ceilings, is laid out according to the precise ratios of musical harmony. The space is not just visually stunning, it is an architectural instrument designed to amplify Gregorian chant and sacred music in a way that would uplift the soul and mirror the divine order of the heavens. This was a deliberate act of acoustic engineering meant to make the spiritual experience tangible. The same principle echoes deep within the Great Pyramid of Giza. Some researchers have theorized that its granite-lined chambers were not merely tombs, but sophisticated resonance chambers. When specific frequencies are introduced into the king's chamber, the hard granite surfaces can amplify the sound, creating a powerful, immersive experience of harmonic vibration. Was this a technology for meditation, for healing, or for facilitating our altered state of consciousness? The builders seemed to understand that sound, shaped by sacred geometry, could directly affect the human spirit. This integration of harmonic proportion reveals a world where math, music, and spirituality were not separate disciplines, but different expressions of a single, unified truth. The architect was also a composer, and the temple was his score. Why would a culture dedicate such immense resources to ensuring its buildings were in tune? They believed that a structure aligned with these cosmic vibrations became a conduit, a place where heaven and earth could meet not just in form but in frequency. This auditory dimension adds a profound layer to the geometric web, suggesting our ancestors were not just building for the eyes, but for the ears and the soul, crafting silent symphonies in stone to harmonize our world with the music of the universe. This sacred science was never meant for the masses. It was the guarded treasure of secret societies and initiation schools, places where the brightest minds underwent rigorous training not just in mathematics, but in the spiritual laws of the cosmos. In the shadowy halls of Egypt's mystery schools, within the secluded groves of the Greek Pythagoreans, and deep in the forest ashrams of India, initiates learned that geometric principles were far more than tools for building. They were the very keys to understanding the universe and one's own soul. The great philosopher Plato himself was said to have been initiated into these mysteries, and his theory of the perfect eternal forms is a direct echo of this esoteric teaching. For these students, a triangle was not just a shape, it was a symbol of aspiration, of the human spirit reaching upward from a material base toward a single, divine point. A circle was the infinite, the unmanifest potential from which all life emerges. To master geometry was to learn the language of God. This profound knowledge was considered too powerful, too dangerous to be written down in plain texts for the uninitiated. It was passed from master to student through an unbroken oral tradition, a chain of whispered wisdom stretching across generations. The true texts were not written on papyrus or parchment, but encoded in the very monuments these masters helped to build. The pyramids, the temples, the stone circles, these were the permanent libraries of this secret science. Their dimensions, their alignments, their proportions, all formed a complex, three-dimensional code that could withstand the burning of libraries and the fall of empires. Why would this knowledge be kept so secret? Imagine the power of understanding the fundamental laws of reality. In the wrong hands, such wisdom could be used for domination and control, rather than for spiritual upliftment and harmony with the cosmos. The initiation schools served as filters, ensuring that only those who had undergone the necessary moral and intellectual purification could access this power. The consistent application of the golden ratio, Pythagorean triples, and celestial alignments from Cambodia to Peru begins to make a different kind of sense when viewed through this lens. It was not a single global culture, but a global network of initiated minds. These master architects and priest astronomers, though separated by continents, were all graduates of the same core curriculum, a universal sacred science that taught the geometric laws underlying all of creation. They were not communicating with each other across the oceans. They were all communicating with the same source and building their answers in stone. The existence of these initiation schools is the missing human element in our mystery, the deliberate, organized effort to preserve a wisdom so profound that it could weave the world's greatest monuments into a single, whispering tapestry of stone. The spiral is a geometric shape that breathes with life. We see it in the vast arms of a distant galaxy, in the perfect curl of a snail's shell, and in the swirling heart of a whirlpool. It is nature's universal signature for growth, evolution, and the unfolding of existence itself. This dynamic form was not lost on our ancestors, who carved its powerful symbolism into their most sacred monuments. At Newgrange in Ireland, a tomb older than the pyramids, the massive entrance stone is covered in deep, swirling spirals. These are not random scratches. They are a deliberate message, a stone-cold belief that death was not an end, but a turning in a great cosmic journey, a spiral path leading to rebirth. Far away, the labyrinth designs etched into the floors of Minoan palaces in Crete and painted onto the walls of temples in India follow the same essential pattern. To walk the labyrinth was to undertake a miniature pilgrimage, a spiraling journey to the center of one's own soul and back out into the world transformed. This was geometry in motion, a map for an inner voyage. But how did the architects translate this living symbol into their grandest structures? They turned to the most efficient spiral in nature, the one born from the Fibonacci sequence. The golden spiral, with its ever-widening arcs based on the ratio of 1.618, became a hidden blueprint. While a building cannot physically curve in a spiral, its proportions can lead the eye and the spirit on that same expanding journey. The layout of a temple complex, the rising taper of a pyramid, even the arrangement of its chambers could be designed to create an invisible, dynamic flow, a sense of unfolding revelation as one moved through the sacred space. This was not static art, it was architectural storytelling. The spiral is the dynamic element in the ancient geometric network, a form that refuses to stand still. It represents a universe that is not fixed and frozen, but alive, growing, and forever cycling through birth, death, and renewal. When we see this same spiral in a tomb in Ireland, a labyrinth in Greece, and a temple in India, we are witnessing a shared understanding of life's most fundamental process. They saw existence not as a straight line, but as an eternal, beautiful, and expanding spiral. The academic world remains deeply divided over this silent stone testimony. On one side, mainstream archaeologists build their case on decades of careful excavation. They argue that human ingenuity, when faced with similar challenges like moving massive stones or tracking the seasons, will naturally arrive at similar solutions. The pyramid shape, for instance, is simply the most stable way to build high with stone, a logical conclusion any culture could reach independently. They see the golden ratio as a naturally pleasing proportion that different societies discovered on their own, a happy coincidence rather than a shared secret. Their interpretation, guided by Occam's razor, favors the simplest explanation that these were isolated geniuses, not participants in a global network. They point to the distinct art, writing, and pottery found at each site as clear evidence of cultural separation. For them, the idea of transoceanic contact or a lost mother culture is an unnecessary complication, a romantic fiction unsupported by the hard evidence of the archaeological record. Yet across the intellectual divide, alternative researchers see that same record as fundamentally incomplete. They ask a powerful question: how can the sheer mathematical precision be mere coincidence? They argue that isolated cultural development might explain a single pyramid, but it cannot account for the specific, repeated encoding of pi, the Pythagorean theorem, and complex astronomical alignments across continents. The odds of two cultures independently deciding to build a massive structure that perfectly squares the circle seem astronomically low. For these thinkers, the evidence points not to parallel invention, but to a common source, a forgotten chapter in human history where knowledge flowed freely across the globe. This clash is more than an academic debate. It is a battle over the very narrative of human civilization. One view presents humanity as a collection of separate sparks, each flaring up brilliantly but alone. The other suggests we were always a connected flame, sharing light and knowledge long before we believed it possible. This tension forces us to confront a difficult truth. Our interpretation of the past is often shaped by the paradigms of the present. The established timeline of history is a comfortable map, and these geometric mysteries are uncharted territories that threaten to redraw its borders. So where does the truth lie? Perhaps it rests not in choosing one side entirely, but in navigating the space between them. We must honestly weigh the skepticism, acknowledging that humans are brilliant problem solvers capable of parallel thought. Yet we must also remain open to the extraordinary, for the stones themselves present a puzzle of such scale and elegance that it demands we reconsider what we think we know. This controversy invites you to become the investigator, to look at the evidence and ask what story these aligned stones are truly trying to tell. The cube stands as geometry's ultimate promise of stability. Its 6 identical square faces, 12 equal edges, and 8 vertices create a form of perfect symmetry and unshakable balance. Across spiritual traditions, this simple, powerful shape became the universal symbol for the element of earth, representing the solid, material foundation upon which life is built. It is the anchor in a chaotic world, a deliberate expression of order carved from stone. Perhaps the most iconic cubic structure in the world is the Kaaba in Mecca, a black-draped building revered as the house of God. Its cubic form does not reach for the heavens like a spire, but instead grounds the divine firmly on earth, creating a stable, defined focal point for the prayers of millions. This same profound symbolism was embodied in the Holy of Holies within Solomon's Temple in Jerusalem, described in sacred texts as a perfect cube. This innermost sanctuary was designed to be a container for the divine presence itself, a space where the infinite could dwell within the finite, bounded by the most stable shape known to geometry. The cube was not merely an architectural choice, it was a theological statement, asserting that the sacred could be encountered within a space of perfect order and harmony. This principle extended far beyond individual buildings, shaping entire cities. The ancient metropolis of Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus Valley was laid out with breathtaking precision upon a rigid grid pattern of streets, effectively turning the entire city into a massive, earthly cube. This was not just efficient urban planning, it was a deliberate act of geomancy, an attempt to impose cosmic order onto the human world. The straight avenues and right-angled blocks mirrored the stable, reliable nature of the cube itself, creating a community that was, in its very layout, a prayer for permanence and balance. Why would cultures so distant in time and space all return to this same basic form? The cube answers a fundamental human yearning for stability. In a world of uncertainty, to build with cubic proportions was to create a sanctuary of predictability and peace. It grounded spiritual energy, providing a stable platform from which the soul could ascend. The recurring use of the cube and the grid is a silent testament to this universal quest, proving that this most elementary of shapes is a foundational pillar in the hidden architectural laws that connect our world. Our modern tools are finally giving voice to these silent stone puzzles. Satellite imagery now scans entire continents from orbit, revealing alignments that stretch for hundreds of miles, patterns impossible to see from the ground. With the precision of GPS, researchers can measure the angles between a pyramid in Egypt and a temple in Cambodia, confirming that their geometric relationship is not a rough estimate, but a deliberate fact. This is not guesswork anymore, it is cartographic proof. One of the most revolutionary technologies is LiDAR, which uses laser pulses to see through dense jungle canopies. In the Amazon rainforest, this technology has unveiled a hidden world, vast geometric earthworks and complex ceremonial centers shaped by ancient cultures. These are not just isolated mounds, but a sprawling, planned landscape of circles, squares, and straight roads, proving that the impulse to shape the world with sacred geometry existed on a continental scale. These tools are transforming archaeology from a science of interpretation into one of verification, providing the hard data that validates the theories of a deeply interconnected ancient world. What other secrets will we uncover when we point our satellites at the deserts or scan the ocean floors? The marriage of advanced technology and historical curiosity is our greatest hope for decoding this global architectural language. We are no longer just staring at the stones, we are listening to the planet, and it is whispering its geometric secrets back to us. Something profound stirs within us when we stand inside a space built with sacred proportions. That feeling of peace and awe in a cathedral is not a random emotional reaction. It may be a direct response to the geometric language of the building, a language our brains are wired to understand. A growing field called neuroarchitecture investigates how the shapes and proportions of our surroundings physically influence our brain waves, our stress levels, and even our capacity for focus. The ancient builders were masters of this psychological art long before we had the science to explain it. They designed their temples and monuments not just as shelters, but as tools for transformation. The precise repetition of the golden ratio, the calming symmetry of a square, the upward aspiration of a triangle, these were not arbitrary choices. They were deliberate psychological triggers intended to quiet the mind, open the heart, and facilitate states of meditation and ritual transcendence. Why does a spiral feel dynamic and alive while a circle feels whole and complete? Our minds seem to have an innate, universal preference for these harmonic forms, a preference that crosses all cultural boundaries. This shared aesthetic is a powerful clue. It suggests that the geometric laws linking ancient sites are not just about aligning with the cosmos, but about tuning the human instrument. The monuments were designed to resonate with the deepest parts of our own consciousness, to elevate our experience from the mundane to the sacred. This psychological dimension adds a breathtaking layer of intentionality to the entire mystery. The builders were not just astronomers and engineers, they were the original psychologists, using stone and space to craft an environment that could literally change who we are. The enduring power of these places is a testament to their success, a silent dialogue between form and feeling that continues to speak to us across the centuries. 3 points define the simplest and most stable of all geometric forms, the triangle. Its upward thrust has always pointed humanity toward the heavens, symbolizing the soul's journey from the earthly plane to the spiritual realm. This powerful shape embodies the concept of Trinity across countless traditions, from the Christian Father, Son, and Holy Spirit to the Hindu Trimurti of Brahma the Creator, Vishnu the Preserver, and Shiva the Destroyer. It is the fundamental blueprint of ascension. This is why the pyramid, a 3-dimensional triangle, became the chosen form for the ultimate spiritual vehicle in both the deserts of Egypt and the jungles of Mesoamerica. These structures were not just tombs, they were cosmic mountains, engineered launchpads for the soul's journey skyward. But the triangle's power extends beyond the obvious pyramid. Look at the very layout of ancient sites. The 3 great pyramids of Giza are not in a straight line. They are deliberately arranged in a triangular formation that mirrors the 3 stars of Orion's belt, anchoring a celestial pattern firmly to the earth. In the British Isles, many stone circles are based on a central triangle, with 3 key stones marking the most critical solar and lunar alignments. This triangular framework provided the stable, directional foundation upon which the rest of the sacred circle was built. How did ancient cultures so universally understand this shape's symbolic power? The triangle naturally resolves duality into a higher unity. Its 2 base angles can represent any pair of opposites, earth and sky, male and female, light and dark, while the single apex point represents the transcendent truth that unites them. Sacred architecture uses this form to create a path of mediation, a geometric guide for the human spirit to navigate the conflicts of the material world and rise toward enlightenment. Every pyramid face, every trilithon gateway, every triangular pediment on a Greek temple was a silent instruction, a permanent reminder of the path upward. The triangle is the directional arrow in the global geometric network, consistently pointing beyond the horizon, beyond the self, toward a higher understanding written into the very angles of reality. A new monument, perfectly aligned with the grid, could be unearthed tomorrow, deep in the Sahara, beneath the ocean's surface, or hidden within the dense Amazonian canopy. Undiscovered sites likely wait to confirm the geometric network. These unexplored regions are the final frontiers of this ancient mystery. Central Asia's vast steppes and the uncharted ocean floors represent immense blank spots on our map, areas that could hold the missing pieces that solidify the global connection. The potential for a single discovery to rewire our entire understanding of history has never been greater. What if a sunken city off the coast of India aligns with both Giza and Machu Picchu, completing a planetary triangle we never knew existed? The evidence is not just buried in the past, it is being built in the present through emerging theories. Some researchers are now looking to quantum physics, exploring the possibility that these geometric alignments are not merely symbolic but functional, operating on a quantum level where consciousness and matter intersect. Could these sites have been designed as resonant chambers to influence reality itself, using principles we are only now beginning to comprehend? The holographic principle, which suggests our 3-dimensional universe is a projection from a 2-dimensional surface, offers another radical lens. Perhaps the ancient builders understood that by manipulating sacred geometry on the Earth's surface, they were effectively programming the larger hologram of reality. These are not just wild speculations, they are the new frontiers of interpretation, fueled by our growing technological prowess. The digitization of millions of historical records, maps, and archaeological surveys allows for complex computer simulations. We can now run algorithms that search for patterns across continents and millennia, identifying geometric relationships no human eye could ever detect. This digital archaeology is like developing a universal translator for the silent language of stone. The journey is accelerating, promising a future where the hidden blueprint of our ancient world is finally rendered in full, luminous detail. These silent stones form a global conversation in geometry, a language of sacred ratios and celestial alignments that whispers of a shared heritage. Our journey has revealed a planet woven together by this invisible web, connecting the pyramids of Giza to the temples of Angkor Wat and the mountaintop citadel of Machu Picchu. The golden ratio, the Pythagorean theorem, and the precise tracking of the stars were not separate discoveries, but different verses of the same cosmic hymn, sung by cultures we once believed were strangers. This grand pattern challenges the very foundations of our historical narrative, suggesting a depth of human ingenuity and a unity of spiritual purpose far greater than we ever supposed. What does it mean for us today to see our ancestors not as isolated tribes, but as participants in a global network of knowledge? This interconnected view of our past invites a profound shift in perspective. It asks us to appreciate the universal human drive to find meaning, to build in harmony with the cosmos, and to leave a legacy that defies time itself. The mysteries etched into these monuments are not locked in the past. They are an open invitation to keep questioning, to keep exploring the hidden connections that bind humanity together. The geometric legacy of the ancients stands as a permanent testament to the enduring power of human curiosity. If this journey into a world connected by stone and spirit has sparked your own wonder, we would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. For more deep dives into history's greatest enigmas, subscribe and join us as we continue to unravel the secrets of our shared past.